Welcome to the Dev Dream Podcast, featuring conversations to keep both you and me inspired in our journey of making games. Today, I got to sit down with Marnix from BiteMe Games and talk about how they've been able to keep a 3-person studio afloat for 4 years without a viral hit, and also the criticism that comes with that while putting out advice on YouTube. Then we went into Unicycle Pizza Time, which I've learned after just 1 month of development has since then continued to make sales and has now grossed $30,000. That's a part of how they have been able to keep that momentum going. Now, lastly, most interesting, at the end of the conversation, we got into their upcoming game, MMO 98. It's an incremental game, and I tell you what, based on the stats they're seeing in Steam Next Fest and wishlist numbers and such, I'm confident this will be by far their most successful game and is going to skyrocket them into even more game dev fame. I'm excited to share all of that and more in this conversation, but before we do, I want to let you know that I am looking for people to help me build this channel by joining YouTube memberships. I have a YouTube membership program now, and one thing you get access to is a members-only Discord where you'll be able to submit questions to future guests. A couple of exciting guests that I have coming up include Sam Yam, Hugo from Code Monkey, and Edmund McMillan, to name a few. Now, without further ado, let's get straight to this awesome conversation with Marnix. Here we go. Yeah, like I said, thanks for joining me. I think a fun place to start would be just a little bit of the background and the lore of BiteMe Games. So it was a little over 4 years ago, you guys posted your first devlog for Forge Industry. If you can take me back in time a little bit to that time, just why did you want to get into game dev? What kind of experience did you have? What was happening 4 years ago at the launch of BiteMe Games, at least on YouTube?
Yeah. So the starting story is probably something somewhat relatable for people. We all knew each other. We were 4 people originally. We have lost one along the way. Um, we started originally as computer science students. That's where we knew each other from. We all studied computer science at the same university in Belgium. And then we all got to get our own jobs. I worked as a system administrator. They worked as programmers. And we would every evening just kind of like chill and play games because that's what you do when you're 21 years old and you just got your first job and you still live with your parents. And after like 2 years or something of doing that, we were getting more settled into our jobs. We were like, okay, we're getting more in the flow. We have more time now. And we kept playing games. We're like, we're kind of getting sick of always playing League of Legends ARAMs. What if we like try to do something else? What if instead of playing games, we're the ones that make games? And we had one guy who had previous Unity experience just from like making lots of prototypes and small games and things like that, nothing commercial. And then we all knew like C# programming. So we were like, Unity uses C#, how hard can it be? And then we were like, okay, fuck it. Let's just host like a mini game jam, just the 4 of us. They all came to my house and we were like, let's make an automation game. Sounds like a good idea. We're going to make the core of that game in a weekend, and then we'll see if we continue with it. That weekend passed, and we are all left depressed, miserable, and that didn't touch game development for the next month, basically, because of how little we got done.
Yeah.
But then we're like pushing and like, okay, maybe we do want to pick it up again. And that's kind of how it started. I think in terms of the YouTube part, that was kind of my thing as well of like, look, we already have 3 programmers. I'm the worst programmer. I'm not going to be doing any programming here.
Yeah.
What do I do instead? I'll make some marketing videos about it because I like doing YouTube. Back when I was like 14 or 13, I started making Battlefield 4 like gun review videos on YouTube. Those videos are unfortunately long lost to the annals of time. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up YouTube again, and that kind of was how BiteMe started.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, you started quite ambitious going simulation, but we all the game devs have that like, that itch early on of just like, this is so fun to do game dev, and you eventually do get to that like itch to create something. So that especially, I think everyone will relate to. What would you guys say with Bite Me? What are you trying to build? Do you just want it to be a small studio of a couple friends, or is there any aspiration to grow to something bigger someday?
When we first started, there was definitely the aspiration of, okay, we want to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And we used to joke. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Free Guy, the one with Ryan Reynolds, where he's
Yeah.
like an in-game
Hmm.
character. Our like final dream aspiration was to basically become like the evil studio from that game, which was like, it was
Yeah.
based on EA. Now, I think about 1.5 years ago, my mindset towards that has completely shifted, where now it's just I want to make games with my friends. And even more so when we first started, like, okay, if we have money, we need to get artists because art is our biggest problem. And art is still now our biggest problem because we are still four programmers. But it makes me realize that, actually what we have, because we have that connection of being friends, we know each other for 7 years, even before we were doing game dev, we took that into game dev and now we're kind of forged in the fire. We have a very unique way of working. We're very much in sync with each other. And it's kind of something beautiful and sacred to me now. And it's like, we can make this work just with the three of us that are left now. I would rather just be the three of us and have that beautiful way of working, that freedom and all of that, compared to when we had interns for a while, because there was like an intern program in Belgium. It realized, oh, it's a Saturday. I can't message them. It's
Mm.
not like I shouldn't do that. Whereas,
Yeah.
if it's me and the boys, I can text the boys at
Right.
Saturday at the 10 p.m. And if they're playing Dark Souls or whatever, they'll just pause their game for a second and be like, hey, this is how you fix it. And I think that is something that's really good. Also being like, hey, yeah, actually today I don't really want to work. And it's like a Tuesday or whatever. And that's fine as well, because once again, we know each other. We have that super high level of trust of like, it's gonna be all right anyway. Makes it way more fun for me, basically, to do stuff that wouldn't be possible if we were to expand our studio.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And do you think that the shrinking of the aspirations has come through just kind of finding the joy of working on a small team, or has maybe a part of it also just been that it's like harder to do, or where do you think that comes from in that sort of changing mindset that you've had?
I think it's also an identity shift of like, when I started game development, I didn't know what I wanted. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna make games in this team. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll wear the producer hats. And
Yeah.
what does a producer do in like bigger studios? They like coordinate all of the different like teams internally, like the artists, and they do all of the other stuff. And I realized I don't like doing like coordination of other people. I'd rather just do stuff myself, because then I can like control the quality level that I have. And instead, I'm kind of just like the ultra generalist right now. And I'm very happy with that. And it's at a scale that I can maintain as well. And it's like, the less people, the less moving parts, the more happy I am now, honestly, as well. And then I think the best way you can look at it is like, I want to be the next sock pop, or like I want our
Nice.
studio to be the next sock pop, which is just four bros in the Netherlands who live together in a house. I think they don't live together anymore now, but like they all just worked on games.
Yeah.
They kind of pulled their revenue together. They used that power of being multiple people to their advantage still, so they could do more releases, and they just had a fun time with it.
Yeah, I think every dev that I've interviewed that has worked on a small team of like 5 or less has said that that's been their favorite. Now, it's a little bit skewed because I haven't really talked to any people from like huge studios or anything, so they would maybe have a different opinion, but there's definitely something to the small team, the camaraderie, the quick moving. And yeah, I'll ask you a little bit later just about kind of your guys' strategy as a studio or stuff, but there's definitely something special about it from everybody that I've talked to. So that's a similar idea that other people have had as well, which has been cool to learn about. Something else I'm
Yeah.
curious about with BiteMe is just kind of the sustainability of it. I think you guys have part of the fun of following your journey is that you're pretty transparent with how much you're making and how you guys are doing things. So just how are you able to sustain it? Are you guys all working day jobs and doing this as a separate thing, or is YouTube bringing in enough? How are you guys making it work?
So it's I think we have some of the most unique funding approaches. When we first started, I quit. So we first started the first 2 years, basically. No, the first 1 year, we were still full time. Like we all had full time day jobs. I was working at Cisco as a data center architect. The other three were working as software developers. But my job was kind of changing, and I was being pushed more and more into a sales position. And I'm like, this is making me miserable. And then we were working on Forge Industry, and we were working on YouTube. We had no signs of like success. Basically, I think our game had like 400 wishlists. We were still way out from release. Our YouTube channel had like 250 subscribers or something. I was just miserable at the job. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. So at the end of 2022, I think, after 1 year, basically, since we started development, I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I'm gonna quit. Now, for context, I was working at Cisco, which is an American company, but I lived in Belgium. And I got American salaries while living in Belgium,
Mm.
which was kind of nuts. For reference, like an average IT wage back then, especially with like my level of seniority, is like 2,400 euros a month. If you're pretty okay, I was pulling in 7,000, 8,000 or something
Wow.
some months.
Yeah.
It was like kind of insane. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna. I know I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna last 3 more months because after that I had booked like a trip to Japan with the boys. That was like already planned for a year, and I'm gonna quit like right before. So I just stacked up money as much as I had. I had saved up a bunch already as well, and then I gave him my two. I think it was more than 2 weeks now. I think it's 6 weeks notice in Belgium, and then I just went full time. And the first 1.5 years we had zero profitability. I didn't pay myself out at all. So the company has just given me like IOUs in terms of like debt of like unpaid wages. So I think we're working on paying them down now as the studio gets more profitable. I think right now the company still owes me 18,000 euros in outstanding wages, which is a decent amount.
Yeah.
So that was me. Then I had the other developer, William. I had said to the guys of like, hey, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna go full in on BiteMe. I think we can make this work. And then like 2 weeks later, one of the other developers, like he messaged me and he was like, you know what? I'm also gonna quit my job. Because he also wasn't very happy with like the way that his work was going. Also, he had to go back to the office more. He doesn't like doing daily stand-ups and all of that stuff. And he also, once again, had built up some sort of a saving because once again, he's a guy living alone with his
Yep.
like he's a guy living with his parents still. The biggest expense is like his Steam expenses, like when he buys games or something each month. So I wanted to prioritize on like him being paid out faster. He still owed some money by BiteMe, not as much as me, but we like found a way of like, okay, we're still gonna pay you like once every 2 months, and then I just got nothing for I think 9 months or something like that because I'm like, he's my friend. I want to take care of him. And then we have one more developer who's still working with us, Thomas. He still has a full-time software developer job as well. So he's not asking for money. He's not looking right now to shift. It's kind of a balance difference we have of like, he has a little bit more equity as well. And he's like, the way we say it is like, okay, me and William, we get like the benefit now of like, okay, we're already full time. We can spend more hours into it. He reduces the risk of not having to go full time because he bought an apartment as well. He has the stability of his job. So he is basically safe financially until the day he decides, okay, BiteMe is making enough money. I'm now going to jump into the boat of let's make this work. Whereas me and William, we get paid now. He doesn't, but at least when he joins to get paid, he'll be safe, and we're taking more of the risk now. That's kind of how we balance it. There's no hard feelings about that at all. I think it's a pretty good balance. Also, I don't want to deal about thinking about making the studio immediately sustainable with 3 people because now with 2 people, it's been okay. I would say the last nine months, more than 9 months at this point, but it's still not ideal. You asked how are we funding? This is going to be a very long segment, I guess. Um, our funding is a mix of 3 main pillars. We have our game sales. Our game sales mainly picked up after we released our second game, Unicycle Pizza Time. We'll probably talk about that one more later. YouTube, and then YouTube, I'm looking at ad revenue plus sponsorships because we do some sponsorships on our channel as well. And then lastly, Patreon, where we started a Patreon as well, like 2.5 years ago or something at this point. That is pulling in about 1,100 euros like this month, for example. And the whole concept of the Patreon is like, hey, if you support us, okay, that's good. But I don't like just getting money for free. So I was like, okay, if you want more in-depth content, go to the Patreon. And then every
Yeah.
week there is one bonus video on there's zero editing. It's just like 40 minutes deep dives into certain topics, basically. And those are the 3 main things. We have some other ways that we make money, but they're like few percentages here and there. Those are the 3 core pillars. We've been able to pay ourselves out consistently without having to like take those IOUs since I think December 2024. So a little bit over a year now. And I'm already very happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, congratulations on hitting some sustainability. I mean, that's a huge piece, and I think we should just pause for a second to just admire the risk you guys have taken, the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, people can say what they want, but it's very creative and not like, normal to take 9
Yeah.
months and not make any money and to take that risk to solve for, joy and excitement in your life. So, yeah, just I think that's really cool, and I don't think that should be understated how cool and adventurous that is. So well done. I mean, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I
You
think you do need to have like a bit of a. I knew I had like a minimum of 1.5 years that I could not earn any money, and I was okay with that. And I also think I had a very chill lifestyle. I didn't really go on like crazy trips. I didn't spend a lot of money on all of those things, which made me be able to stretch it to like 2 years. But that kind of like was the right point when Unicycle Pizza Time came out. That was like the point that it was more like fuck, we are starting to run out of money now. I don't want this journey to end. We're going to need to pivot from our larger scope game project that wasn't really doing much into we need to make friend slop, or like we need to make a genre that is more easy to make and probably has some more marketability, because we tried the publisher model, or like we tried pitching to publishers. We tried the government grant model of like Belgium has some pretty good government grants between 25K and 400K. Both of those did not work out for us at all. So we're like, okay, we need to figure out something else to do as well.
Yeah, I've seen this is another micro theme I've come up with is that a lot of the developers that make it have a season where they stack up all their cash and they lower their expenses as much as they can so that they can create as much time as possible to try something. So that's very cool. Um, you mentioned Stock Pop earlier. I think I haven't like fully gone in depth with them, but I think they use a sort of Patreon model to sort of play test their games. Have you guys tested with that at all with the Patreon or anything like that?
I think the sock pop model is something that doesn't really work in 2026 anymore. I
Hmm.
think it is indeed of like the sock pop model of how they worked is you would get, I think, one bonus game or like two bonus games every month, and then they would also release one main game. But like these were small games. These were like sometimes 30 to 60-minute experiences. They were not in-depth games. But what they did is then, yeah, one, they had sustainability somewhat sorted out. And then if they made like the small game version and people were like, hey, I'm really vibing with this, then they would sometimes make like, for example, Stacklands or I think Grün, as well as like full big games. And those have now become like their main source. I think back then, spending $3 a month on like a games membership in like 2018 or 2017 was a lot more approachable. I don't know how to describe it. I just think people are not willing as much anymore now to do that style of funding unless you're making adult only games. Then it can still work the Patreon funded model. If you're making non-nude games, basically, I think it's a very hard sell to get people to convince to sign up for a Patreon for games, because I think the amount of games that are low priced and high quality is also just so high. It's like, why would I choose this one developer versus just choosing like a game every month myself that I vibe with more?
Yeah, that makes sense. Like there are just so many good games on Steam that are $5 and there's bundles. I mean, you can sometimes find a bundle for $10. So that makes sense on the shift in the market. Now, I would like to start to pick your brain on some of your games as well, and kind of go through the backlog of Bite Me, so to speak, and just kind of yeah, see some thoughts on that. So starting with Forge Industry, which we already mentioned, which was that first kind of simulation game. Now, I know that game it wasn't viral or anything like that, but do you consider that game a success when you look back on it?
I think so. The game still grossed over $10,000, which I think is still more than most beginner developers make from their
That's
first
quite
game. I
good for
think,
a first game, yeah.
yeah, I think it's partially because we did zero market research for it. We were just, what can we make? Let's make an automation game. We didn't know that automation management blacksmithy games are like the best genre on Steam. Chris Zukowski even made like an article about us, talking about like how we made such a bad game. It didn't get any wish lists. We had so many mistakes with it, but still we performed pretty well
Yeah.
just because of the genre we chose, basically. Looking back, do I regret having made Forge Industry? I think not. I think it's like these are necessary steps to learn and get better as a developer. It's like a bit of like, okay, it's not the best game that we made. We also like reduced the base price by like a whole bunch. It goes on discount a lot. It's like if it's a $5 game, which is what it's like priced if it goes on discount now, I think it's fine. When we first released that game, I think it was $16 or $17. That was not fine.
Yeah.
I mean, the game never. went that big either. I think we did some novel ideas of the automation game concept without conveyor belts, but now Odd Sparks has come out, which has completely like 100x basically the game that we had envisioned
Yeah.
um, in their game.
Yeah, what a fun fact that you guys got a Chris C article. I didn't know that. That's a fun little piece of lore. How long did you guys end up working on it?
18 months, but you know, it's 18 months from starting that very first game jam up till the actual release, but there were like periods in there where we didn't work for like 3 or 4 months, I think, because we all had work kind of in the way, or we were kind of burnt out, especially at the start when we
Yeah.
weren't sure, do we even want to do this? Yes or no? I remember like I think between like March and then June, there was basically no work done. And it was just me and then Thomas, who was one of the co-founders. And we talked and we're like, okay, I like game development. I want to keep going with this, but we were at this weird spot where 2 of the other team members weren't. Like, oh, don't have time. I don't want to work on this. And there was no progress there. So we're like, okay, either we just need to have a talk with them, either you're in or out, and we'll stay friends with them regardless. But just so we had clarity of like, are we going to continue this as a 2-man studio, as a 4-man studio? Back then, everyone ended up saying, hey, let's do this with 4 people. And then we committed on working more on the game again, but it was still 10, 20 hours a week per person, not like full-time at all.
Yeah, what did you guys learn from that project?
Genre matters. I did learn a lot. I think it's like hard to pinpoint to like, what did I learn from that project specifically versus what did I learn from all the projects that I've done up until now. What did we learn? We can release a game on Steam. Um, we learned that there's no guaranteed success. And I think just that making games is way harder than we think that it is. I think those are like the big things. Also, we're not good at artists, like not good as artists, because when we start, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make the 3D art for this game. It should be doable. And then after like 6 months of Blender, I'm like, no, this is not good. We're not doing this. And then we somewhat swapped over to Cinti assets, but somewhat also kept some of my own custom 3D work, and it just didn't look good. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think there's a good amount of people that struggle with art. Like it seems like there's a greater amount of programmers and designers, at least in, I'm more in the like indie slash kind of hobbyist space. And I think art
Yeah.
there's less of those. What are you guys doing today to try to solve for that, maybe weakness that you have as a studio?
Yeah, just a quick side note. I once did a poll for our audience of like, what's your like main thing? Would you say you're coder first or artist first? 75% said they were coders first, like
Yeah.
programmer first. And I think like 15% was like artist, and then the rest was like, oh, I do writing more, I do marketing more, whatever. It's like, what is your strength?
Yeah.
What do we do now? I think it's one learning that we are never going to deal with custom assets, because we cannot make them ourselves, and
Yeah.
working with commissions, it just balloons the cost up too high.
No.
And then also point 3, we don't really want to work with other people for 2 reasons. Like I said, we have a very close, tight-knit friend group, art style, and also because we've had some bad experiences before. The problem is like, I'm a public person, and it's kind of the Mr. Beast problem, I call it. I'm not like Mr. Beast of like, you do one thing wrong, and immediately it's very easy for one person to be like, this guy didn't pay me, or this guy was a dick to me, and I will always lose. Even if I come up with all of the receipts of like, hey,
Yeah.
no, I was actually a really nice guy, there is something about me being a like more popular person that makes people more easy to want to hate with me. So that's why also we had this where someone once was like, hey, I'm going to localize your game to Portuguese. I don't want anything for this. And then 2 weeks later, suddenly like, hey, here's my PayPal. Can you send me some money? And I'm like, bro,
No.
that's not what we're doing here. And I felt powerless, because if the
Yeah.
guy was like, okay, I'm gonna go and like go public with this, I can't do anything because I'm gonna look like an asshole, even though they're like, oh yeah, I'll do this for you for free.
Right.
So we have that same thing with like artists and whatever, that it's just we don't want to deal with this, we'll figure it out ourselves. What has made us better? I think it's once again comes down to iteration, having made more games where you can clearly see the progress between first game we made and then like third game and then fifth game of like, we always get better at things like lighting, color, like post-processing. Also choosing good art packs. I think that's maybe a hot take sometimes. Generally, one of my favorite ways to come up with game ideas is I just go through the Unity asset store and I look at like what has been uploaded recently. And then sometimes I just find an asset pack that is like an entire, like it has enough depth to be like, hey, I could maybe make a game about this. And then I start thinking, okay, I have this Japanese alley asset. What could I make by this? Or I have this 1980s office asset and it looks very solid. What could I make based on this asset? It's kind of like a design prompt. And that way, a lot of the heavy lifting is already done because we have immediately a consistent art style. All of our assets look the same. I think one thing that we realized as well is that PBR assets, like more like high poly ones, if you go the pre-made asset route, are easier to mix and match than going for something like a Cinti or low poly stylized, where we tried some low poly stylized as well.
Interesting.
The moment you need one thing from another asset pack, if it's not like Cinti or whatever, stylized and low poly have so many different meanings, where you can take two low poly stylized assets and they will not fit together at all. Versus if you take two PBR assets, they will generally fit a lot better. I think those things, and then lighting. There's like a 15-minute lighting tutorial on YouTube. I just watched it like every month, and that's just how I get better, basically. Lighting and fog.
Okay, so I'm hearing asset packs that are pretty high quality can create some consistency, and lighting is good. Now that as in next to, I wanted to shift to Unicycle Pizza Time, which this is actually the game where I found your channel and started to kind of follow your journey, because the game did pretty well. Let's see, I've got some notes here. You made it, I think you reported you made it in about a month, which is really
Yeah.
fast dev cycle, and it made over $8,000, which for that
Oh,
time,
your numbers are out of date. I
yeah,
think it's
that would have been
grossed
from the
over
old video.
30,000 at
Yeah,
this point.
amazing. Yeah, that's perfect. I think that was, yeah, maybe like the video right after. So yeah, 1 month of dev time and clearly even some sustainable sales. So a quick note, just tying back into our conversation already. Did you guys use an art pack with that one, or were you kind of experimenting with your own models at that point?
Oh, that was all assets as well. The way that that game came about, 'cause I don't know if that was a specific question. But the way that game came about was, like I said, we were working on a way bigger like management game, and we were like, people were not liking the concept. We were going massively over scope. We were not getting any publishers to talk to us, and we're like, okay, we have a problem. And then I went to develop Brighton. I guess this was 2024, to like go and make content about it. And we had like a sponsor just for like a YouTube perspective. And everyone then, like at these industry conferences, was talking about like the next big thing being streamer paid. Or well, back then it wasn't called streamer paid yet. It had like some weird, it was like, it's a very good UGC genre, like user generated content, which meant content creators. Streamer paid only came later. This was when I think Murky Divers was one of, I think Lethal Company had just released or was about to release. And then Murky Divers was the one that I talked to the publisher behind it a lot as well. And I came back from Develop Brighton, which was like end of July. And I'm like, hey, Thomas, I have this idea. What if we just Googled like top 10? We realized there's a problem. Then we Googled top 10 weirdest sports or something like that. And then one of them was unicycling. And I'm like, what if we make a game about unicycles? So onto the asset store we go. There was this beautiful unicycle asset. I think we're still the only people who have ever purchased it because it has like 0 reviews. And we just used that. We made a very simple version with like multiplayer in like 3 days that just had like a launch pad and you could see each other unicycle around and you could fall over. And we played it and it was like, hey, this is interesting. Let's just make it so you can go through the level. I think Chain Together came out also about that time. So like, okay, let's just have it be an end goal. And it was very stupid. Like the name is called Unicycle Pizza Time, but there's 0 pizzas in the game. It was we started with, okay, we have this unicycle, you have to go through a city. And then I found this 3D model of like one of those delivery bags. And I'm like, what if I just put this on the main character's back? And then suddenly it clicked.
Right.
Suddenly it was like the fantasy was there, even though like the gameplay did not change at all, just by adding that one 3D model. Because what's the point of a unicycle guy just regularly going through a city? I don't know. Whereas if you go off like, hey, it's like a gig economy worker and he has the backpack and he needs to be
Right.
fast or he's not gonna be able to get his DoorDash tip or whatever. The appeal was suddenly a lot more there, I guess.
Yeah, there.
So yeah, then we found some city assets, and I just made that level. And we had one level at first. We're like, oh, we're gonna make 3 levels, and I very quickly realized we're not making 3 levels in 1 month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great story of how a small game can do so well. Do you feel like you just hit that market of streamer bait at the right time? Or do you think if you released that game today, for example, would it do just as well? Or is the market maybe flooded, in your opinion?
I think there was definitely a benefit to me having gone to like develop Brighton. I think I wouldn't have come up with the idea myself, like going to like more of an industry event. I think now there is just more, is I think the problem. Back
Mm.
then, there were still streamer bait games, but there just weren't as much. Whereas now you look at like the OpenX, the Everything app, and then immediately there is like Dexerdo has an article of like this new 1 to 4 player co-op game. Like for example, there's now the one of like hiding bodies. There's one with the airplane. There's so many different ones. Recently, we had the one with the 2 people on a lock.
Uh-huh.
They're somewhat easy to make at the end of the day, and there are just so much more being made now. I think they can still perform well. I think we back then just had a really good point in time.
Mm.
That's there was still maybe even more demand for it. There's a few other Unicycle themed ones coming that are coming out now, some of which are from BiteMe viewers as well, who saw our game and were like, hey, I'm also gonna make a Unicycle game. I think it can still work. I think it's a little bit more like luck. It's always a luck-based genre of like you need a content creator to pick up your game.
That makes
Because I
sense.
think that's an important or like an interesting thing as well. That I don't think if you saw the first video of like here's how much we earned, we didn't talk in that. Unicycle Pizza Time, we didn't have any marketing for it because the game was not in a playable state until 3 days before launch. And yeah, Steam page went up 2 weeks before the game released as well because we just didn't have time. The game on launch got covered in Japan, and Japan was our #1 market by far. Outside of Japan, like Germany, United States, all of the like other first world or like bigger countries did not care about the game at all. We just had like some people from our audience, that's it. Japan picked up on it, Korea picked up on it. Those were the 2 main countries for the first 4 months. And then at the start of December, we had like Dog VA played it once, but he thought it was too hard. And then like a week later, some German content creator played it. And then suddenly where there's this second wave where all German content creators started playing it in like the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then about a week after that, I think because game dev or like YouTube is such an ecosystem where everyone kind of watches everyone, and it just takes like I watch other content creators. So if I see this content creator play this game and I'm a content creator, hey, maybe I should play this game as well, where it's that cascade effect. We had a very, once again, kind of lucky timing where there was a YouTuber, Smitty. He made a video about Unicycle Pizza Time where he was playing with the boys. It had like 2 million views or something. And that released right at the start of the Steam winter sale as well. So we were making, I think, 500, $600 a day for the
Wow.
entire Steam winter sale because of just this perfect combination of like the game is on discount and all of the United States and like English content creators are now figuring out about this game.
Wow. Yeah, that is some luck. I mean, I am more in the camp of game dev as skill versus luck, but some of those things that you talked about, like just getting picked up by a random Japanese streamer or something, that's probably a little bit
Yeah.
luck. Um,
I think in terms of luck, one thing there is though, and that's kind of the weird part, all of those English content creators, I had sent them keys 4 months ago.
Interesting.
Like
Wow.
when I did the first content creator outreach, nobody from the English speaking audiences picked up on it basically. We had, I think, 2 VTubers pick up the game, like Japanese ones before release, and then basically right as the game released, that's when like more content started being made because I also only sent out my marketing emails 3 days or 4 days before the launch as well.
Yeah, I noticed you guys actually recently did some streams, maybe adding a level or something. Is this because of
Yeah.
some of the recent traction that you're supporting it still?
It's like it's still often our best performing game right now, and it's also a game that I enjoy. And I live in Japan now, and a few months ago I went to Osaka in the Game Summit, and I just exhibited the game there. It's like a very smallish, like local event, but it was very nice to just see like, hey, people really like this game still. And then we submitted for Bit Summit in May as well. Like it's gonna be in May now. And it's like this game keeps getting solid numbers at this point, where we're still pulling in 5, 10K every year at the current rate. It has earned enough now, I feel, to warrant trying out at least to do like a content update. It's going to be a free extra map that we want to add. We're probably not going to get as much content creator coverage as we got in the original one, but we still feel like, hey, this could be a good marketing beat. If we time it together with Bit Summit, I don't know if we're selected yet or not. And then just having the update, because making a new map isn't that hard. It's just placing down blocks, and that's it basically. Like, of course it's more, but I know the game, like how it controls. So I have a better idea of like, this can work, this cannot work. These are some downfalls or issues we had with the main level that I want to address in this new level. And we try to reach out to Steam as well of like, hey, we're planning to do a major update end of May. Can we get a daily deal? Unfortunately, like, yeah, you're not rich. Like, you haven't made us enough money for that, so we can't help you with that. But it's still something that the pressure isn't high, but it's something that is like nice to do at the end of the evening when my brain is fried. I can just place down blocks and prefabs in Unity and slowly chip away at making a bigger level as kind of like a side thing that I think will still pay off.
Yeah, it definitely has kind of captured that, like, sort of. There's just some games that they're just silly enough, but also fun enough that they scratch a special, like, itch in your brain. And I think riding a unicycle while delivering, being a gig worker, that hits it. It's unique. It's a fun idea, but you also can imagine, there's things that are kind of close to it. Like, it's kind of in that, like, in that vein of, yeah, streamer bait that you were talking about. So it's easy to visualize. One thing that I was curious to ask you about is that, clearly the game's been super successful, especially considering that it only took you a month to make it. But when I looked through your backlog, it looked like it took maybe a year for another game. I was just wondering if that was intentional, or if you guys are kind of trying to shift back to small games, or just, we're kind of in this. I'm in a season where there's kind of a debate on, should you actually make a bunch of small games, or should you invest more times? So just, how are you thinking about that with this game that's so successful versus maybe taking longer?
Yeah, I think it was 7 months until our next game, because Unicycle Pizza Time came out end of August, and then both My Virtual Friend and Overtime only came out in March the next year.
Okay,
The
yeah, I was a little off.
the reason we didn't have any games released for a while is also because we were kind of stuck on what to make next. Of like, okay, we see streamer bait games perform well, or like these kinds of rage games. So the obvious thing, and this is like what every YouTube comment yells at me, is like, why don't you just make more of it? Why don't you make unicycles in space or whatever? And it's like, we tried. We were working on one that was wheelchair based. We had a few other ideas, but they never hit. And it's kind of like, okay, back to the drawing board. Let's try something else. Didn't work either. And it took us a few like canceled games basically, because we never announced them. They were just internal, like prototypes for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. And then, okay, we realized, look, this is not making the progress we wanted. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's try something else. That's when we came on to Overtime Anomaly, because I made this video of like best genres for beginning game developers. And I think one of them was like horror games. Horror games are easy if you're a beginning game developer, because mechanically they're not that in depth. It's easier to make vibes with like good level design and all of that. And I'm like, I talk a lot of things online of like, oh, you should make horror games. And then I asked myself, okay, but have you made a horror game yet? I'm like, no, I haven't. And then I found the 1980s Office asset, and I'm like, this is a perfect, like, I think Severance was also kind of in the cultural zeitgeist back then. And I'm like, hey, I think we can make a game with this. So we started development on this at the start of December 2024. And then we ended up shipping that 3.5, 4 months later. That was me with one other developer who did that.
Yes, actually,
But that one, yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think we're gonna lead to the same thing also of we have multiple people in the team, but I also didn't mention that Unicycle Pizza Time was not made with the entire team, and that's also a shift that we saw after Unicycle Pizza Time. Unicycle Pizza Time was made with me and Thomas, and William. He kept still working on the bigger management game that we were looking for publisher funding for, because we were gonna go to Tokyo Game Show. We were gonna talk to some more publishers there. And then we realized, hey, this is actually so much nicer if we don't have to do code reviews of each other's code and whatever. We can just work a lot faster because there's one programmer. It's a small 1 month period. So he knows immediately where every single piece of code is, because he hasn't been working on this for 2 years yet. He hasn't been eternally refactoring it. So then we kind of shifted, and we had that split of, okay, now we have 2 dev teams. We have dev team 1, which is me and Thomas, and dev team 2, which is me and William. And because I'm kind of like working on both, and then they're the lead programmer, the lead game designer, because sometimes we ran into some clashing with game design decisions as well of like how are we gonna implement our save file system? And then the one guy's like, I want it to be a save
It
file, and
was
then no, I want to have a profile with like 4 save files, and then someone else was like, no, we're just gonna have one save file, and it's like it always overwrites the other. And we got stuck on that for like 3 days or something. I was like, guys, we cannot do this. This is not worth it. And those problems were solved by just pulling them apart. So then we started Overtime Anomaly. That was me and William. And then me and Thomas were working on another game that we also ended up canceling. It was a magical girl survivor, like, basically.
Yeah, that was something I was really curious about because, yeah, like you mentioned, you had a couple games released at the same time or, very close to each other. And so that is a really interesting approach to a small studio. I haven't heard of anyone else kind of running multiple games at the same time. Um, so do you, for game design, whenever you're working sort of on these teams of
Mhm.
two, do you just are you giving input for those, or are you kind of just letting your programmer kind of take the lead on design and then you're kind of filling in the gap? Or, how are you using any cooperative design or anything like that?
I think for all the games, I am like the main game designer, I would say. I think that's also because I'm the one who does the UI and does the levels and does the like everything basically I do except the programming.
Makes sense.
And
Okay.
of course, my programmers, they still have input. I'm like gonna run things by of like, hey, this is how I think we can implement these things. I'm just gonna let you implement it once we prove them like, hey, this is a good idea. Sometimes they push back and like, I don't know about this. That's 100% okay. But I think in terms of especially like the groundwork of game design and coming up with the game idea, I think that is basically for all the games so far that we've shipped, it's been me. We've had some canceled games where the programmer was like, "Hey, I want to kind of spearhead the game design on this to kind of lift some of the load of me." But then we ran into other problems that were not game design related. Of like, yeah, maybe this is too big of a scope that we still ended up canceling the projects.
Yeah, do you think your studio has benefited from creating so many genres and that you've been able to learn a wide range? Or, and maybe this is both, do you think that you have maybe lost the momentum you could have had if you maybe stuck to one genre and mastered that?
So this was a piece of feedback that we got when we applied for our second game. When we were making our second game, we applied for a government grant, and it was like a very different genre. And then the jury was very mean to us. I still have beef with them. I'm a very grudgeful person, and they were like, "No, you shouldn't do this. We're gonna deny this. You should just go back to making management games because that's what you're good at."
Mm.
And we took that personally, and we were like, "Fuck you! We're not going to make another management game. We're never gonna do that again. We're gonna make whatever we want. Don't like cornhole or I don't know the exact term us into always making this." And then we've tried like everything. Like I said, we've done
Mm.
streamer bait, we've done horror, we've
Yep.
tried roguelites, we've tried everything basically under the sun at this point. We're kind of starting to come back now to okay, maybe we should go for something that's not too art heavy, at least, or like not too narrative heavy. That's okay. But we always had a lot of reusable code still from all of our previous games. We have like we call it Swiss code, which is like an internal package that just does so much of the boilerplate stuff for our games as well that I think we still get a lot of benefits in terms of okay, not having to start from ground zero. Yeah, there's still some things that we need to learn. Like for example, now we're making an incremental game, and we didn't have a good approach yet on how are we going to manage like centralized statistics and like getting all of the data. We're getting better at that now. There is a benefit in it, but I think there's also something that we are doing this partially for fun still. Part is business, but we want to have fun while we do it. Of like, we want to make what we want to make, basically. And we really didn't want to make more management games.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, let's just make something else.
So it sounds like
And
you're
you do
going.
see that,
Go ahead.
yeah. You do see that after we released Overtime Anomaly, which was an anomaly game that we looked at Five Nights at Freddy and like Exit 8 and then meshed them together. There were some very big game design issues with that, where the game just it wasn't profitable at the end of the day. Like we made, I think, $6,000 from it, but having spent 2 people 3 months on it, it wasn't worth it. But we then realized, okay, this is all of the feedback we have. We have all of this code for an anomaly game. What if we just delete 50% of the code and we make a more focused anomaly game. And that's how we got Kyoto Anomaly, which took 6 or 7 weeks to develop. And that, in return, has actually performed way better. The game is also, I think, at 98%. It has 1 negative review out of 77, which is also, I think, game design-wise, it's a very simple game design, but it's a game that is like, what if we made the best possible anomaly game? Is kind of the question we asked ourselves there. Of like, we have voice acting, you have like one optional but still kind of fun side mechanic. We have a bunch of anomalies. We added, I don't know if we were like the first with it, probably not, but like some UX changes of like, okay, if you have an anomaly game and you choose like the wrong path, you get a reset, which is like, oh, but I didn't see what's wrong. It's like, okay, what if we just add like a little hint every time you choose the wrong turn? That is like, hey, here is what you should pay more attention to. It's something people really liked. I see it more now with other anomaly games. I think it's partially because they saw me do it. I've talked about it a bunch on our YouTube
Yeah.
channel. And that was kind of the idea. I'm very happy with that. And that was definitely something that we could only do because we had made that previous anomaly game before. We already knew some of the pitfalls, we already knew some of the codes. But I don't think we should have been like, oh, all we're going to do now is make anomaly games, because that's the genre we have a framework for, basically.
So it sounds to me like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe your plan moving forward is to not make one genre, but maybe pick 3 or 4 genres that you're kind of proficient in, and then kind of keep going back to those because they fit your skill set?
Yeah. I think that's kind of indeed because we keep doing this loop of like, indeed, yeah, now we're doing the incremental game, which is kind of like a management game, but not really. It just looks like a management game, is I think more of the case. I still want to make an anomaly game at some point, just because I think they are still fun to make, and if we can do something else. And then I also still want to make more streamer-based games. We had some ideas, but they were like for like technical reasons or scope creep, and like, guys, we need to make money now. We cannot spend another 2 months on trying to figure out how to do networked physics in Unity. We have to move on for now. I think that is indeed something of like having a few core games or few core genres that we kind of can swap between, so we don't get burnt out on always being the same. I know whenever I say this, people like to yell about like, but did you see that GDC talk about Jake Burkett talking about how he survived 12 years without
Right.
ever having a hit just by making solitaire games? And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to only make solitaire games. I don't only want to make anomaly games. I want to do a little bit more than that still.
Yeah, something I've learned from the podcast is that there are a lot of ways to do things that can be successful. And so, yeah, Jake Burkett can go and make the same game 20 times, and that can be successful. And you guys can pick a few genres and not burn yourselves out because you hate making the same game. And that can also be successful, and that's good. Um, I'm curious about just your guys' strategy since most of your games are smaller-ish. Um, do you do you hope to someday get a hit or, and say like sell 100,000 copies or something pretty quite successful? Or are you more comfortable in kind of planning for just a bunch of games of the size you've already had that just kind of build up and build a backlog? What's your plans for kind of building sustainability like that?
I wouldn't complain if we got a hit, but the main goal and our entire like small games approach is built 100% on that. Hey, Unicycle Pizza Time is still $600 a month. Kyoto Anomaly is still $400 a month. Let's just keep making games and stack that up. We're kind of the less successful version of the Mrs. interview you did, where he was like, "Oh yeah, every game I make adds like $1,000 a
Right.
month to my income." We're not good enough game developers, I think, yet to reach that point of success right now. But that is our approach of like, look, we're just going to keep making small and small. Like, we're just going to keep making small, not bad, not rushed games, small,
Mhm.
good games, releasing them, and then building up the backlog. And at some point, one will do better than Unicycle
Right.
Pizza Time, for example. But I also don't want to feel like I'm stuck now of like, oh, my previous game made 50K. Any game, like if I make another game, a sequel, or just in general, a second game, and it makes only 20K, I'm not going to hate my life. It's just more in the passive income buckets and go from there, basically, where I just want to have a backlog of 10, 15 games and have those stack up over time and be more consistent. And also, I think, learn more from that compared to, oh, I'm going to go all in on like the one game that is now going to be the big game. We've heard that comment from like our audience as well. Like, why don't you guys, now that you have a bit more stability, not lock in for like 1 year and then make a $10, $15, $20 game, making like something more
Mhm.
deep and complex? And it's like, I think that there's still a lot of risk because those games have no guarantee of success either. Like, yeah, you may have a bigger ceiling, a higher ceiling of how much you can earn, but I think the risk reward just doesn't work there. I think we as a studio are also way better at moving faster. Our best games always come when we give ourselves the least time. I don't know if that's a correlation causation thing, but we see that now with like MMO 98 as well, where people were yelling at us like, "This is stupid. You guys spent only 6 weeks on this game and you're already in the next fest." And then now it's one of the top like incremental games of the next fest. And it's like, I don't know what honestly happened here, but there just seems to be this thing where if I am semi crunching, but I think it's fun. It makes me feel alive
Yeah.
on a game. Those are also the games that perform way better than
Mhm.
the ones that I need to go and deeply plan the mechanics and write game design documents and all of that. We don't have a game design document for most of our games. I just like come in with a pre-made, like I make a level or I make a UI and I'm like, this is my vision to the rest of the team. Do you guys see the vision? Okay, perfect. Then we keep working on this.
Yeah, well, and there's really something interesting when you talk about like how long you're going to spend on a game. Like your audience says, spend a year or two and lock in, but there's no guarantee that that actually creates the game that's better or more viral or something. Like I interviewed the developers of this incremental game called a game about feeding a black hole, and they've made over $500,000, and it was just two people working on it for like 6 months. And so especially in the incremental space, which I'm curious to hear about MMO 98 a little bit more. There just seems to be, I think Chris Zukowski's even talked about this genre specifically being a little bit of a gold mine right now, in that there's just a lot of players and you can create a really fun one that's a good experience without an insane amount of work because of the minimal art and stuff like that. So how did you guys land on making an incremental game? Did you start before some of that Chris Zukowski craze, or has that conversation been part of the guiding light for it?
It was you did an interview with Payne Robinson, the guy behind Execute, and he had this massively viral video of like, I made a game with Paint of my student load depth. And I looked at it and I saw that I'm like, hey, I like this UI. I played the demo for a while. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then, similar to like I see an asset pack and I'm like, my brain starts thinking, how could I make a game about this? I saw that Windows 98 style and I'm like,
Mhm.
how could I make a game about this? What would I do? And then coming back to my data center like background, I'm like, game about like old school like SCADA systems or like old interface OSs of like managing something. I also had a little bit before then read the book Play Nice by Jason Schreier, which talks about like the history and downfall of Blizzard. And it's a pretty good book. There's not that much as an indie developer you can learn of it that's like applicable. But if you're like, hey, I want to learn more about game dev, I think it is still very nice. And I was like, I just sent like a one sentence pitch. I do this with my boys often of like, I come up with an idea and I send like one single sentence and like, this is the idea I have. It's often like almost brain farty. Um, and then they kind of just we have one guy, William, he plays so many games. He often just sends me, oh, this game already exists. Here's the Steam link because he already
Yep.
has played like 10 hours of it. And he was like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. And it's like, okay, I think the next day, then after he was like, hey, this looks pretty cool. I just woke up and I just banged together the entire UI of the game and like mocked it all together in Unity immediately. Oh, like this is how I think it's gonna look with like the CRT shader. There was nothing functional. And then I showed it to him and it's like, okay, do you think we can make this work? And that's kind of just how it started. Uh, that made us go like it. I knew incremental games were performing well because, of course, everyone has seen. I think the Era was in a game about feeding a black hole, but it wasn't like purely. It was more like, hey, people are seeming to make these. It's a very code heavy genre. We're good at code. Why not try to make it ourselves? But I think there's a bit of a caveat here as well. That hindsight is very good, but I think we actually made how do I say this? Not like a better incremental, because that sounds just like an asshole, but like the Steam Nexus is going on right now. And I'm like, it is Discord with a bunch of other incremental game devs. And I'm gonna be honest, we're one of the best performing demos Steam Nexus. We're pulling in over 1,000 wishlists a day, even multiple days into the next fest. Now, where I
Amazing.
look at other game devs who went in with 10,000 wishlists, 5,000 wishlists, and they're pulling in about 100, 150 a day. And therein like this, it's so over for us. And one thing there is I think it's a difference. Incremental is such a big genre at the end of the day, where a game about feeding a black hole and games like that is more of a node buster, like is the term they like the incremental games have rid of, like the loop of I have a circle and like the circle is around my mouse and I just hover over something for 10-15 seconds. I have a forced reset prestige skill tree and go again. I think this is an incremental style that is already kind of falling off. I think people are kind of sick of it. Also, if you look at the /r/incremental game subreddit, there's like 4 posts a day or something of like, I'm so sick of Nodebuster likes.
Mm.
I did not know about that sentiment. I just made the game that I came up with of like the MMO 98 of like, it's an incremental game, as in numbers go up, but there is no like loop section basically. It's just you manage your infrastructure, you buy more infrastructure, you buy more upgrades so you can make more money. And that's kind of the style. And then some other of the incremental devs also told me, like, hey, you should post this on the incremental game subreddit. I think they're gonna like it. And indeed, it's the like #1 non-meta post of the last month as well, of like comments being like, hey, this is different. Finally, something that's not a node buster like. And I'm gonna be honest, I just lucked into that. I didn't know that that was the sentiment about incremental games either.
Yeah, there's
I
this
just made the game that I wanted to make. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a weird phenomena where, like, even Aramis, I think, has received enough attention with the game about feeding a black hole that other people are now gonna try to replicate that because he did
Oh,
have a
have
lot
you
of
seen
success.
the Steam Next Fest of like how many games are on the Steam Next Fest
Nope.
titled a game about
Oh, no.
blank?
Yeah.
I think there's a solid 25 or 30 games. It's like a game about like all of them are also like incremental hits. Like,
Yeah.
guys, can we please be a little bit more original?
Right.
Because of you see that thing basically. You see
Yeah.
one big YouTuber make it. And
Yeah. Well, for anyone listening, maybe if you haven't started building it yet, maybe don't build a node buster like then.
and don't name it a game
Yeah.
about something.
A game about feeding a star or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's really interesting to talk to you because I am planning to make a game in a couple months whenever I finish up school. I'm just sort of a hobbyist, just want to do it for fun.
Mhm.
But I've been thinking incremental space would be where I start because I'm not good at art, but I also didn't want to do a node buster. Like I actually didn't know it's called that, so it's really helpful like framework. But I think what I would build is something sort of in the same like subgenre as MMO 98, where it's sort of like a spreadsheet incremental kind of,
Yeah.
maybe do something with like an RPG, like there's one called Melvor Idol, which I've never played,
Yeah.
kind of looked at, but so are you kind of in that are you closer to execute? Is that like the best example of what you're doing where there's just sort of you're kind of
100%.
building
Yeah.
systems up? Yeah, that makes sense.
I think I would like to say that my game is gonna be like that's the benefit of like having games that are already established. It's like I can just download every single like Steam review of Execute, throw that into a large language model and be like, how
Yeah,
do I make a better game than this? Of
that's
like
really clever.
like small stuff of like one of the feedback points of like Execute is like people are like I have to click too much. And it's like, okay, I have a solution for this. Let's just add like an auto clicker of
Yeah,
like, it's a simple script. We add it to a button of like, if you hold a button pressed, it will like automatically click it for you.
that's cool.
And those are like the things that also with Kyoto Anomaly, we did that. I looked at reviews of like 10, 15 different Anomaly games. And then also the experience from our previous Anomaly game. I'm like, okay, how do we merge all of this together to make the best possible experience whilst still staying in that genre? I think with Execute, the main drawing point at this point is just going to be the visual style because it's
Mhm.
also Windows 98. I think gameplay wise, more and more we've started drifting away from that. The first versions of like the UI and things like that that I made were very much like Execute ripoffs basically, but then over the process of iterating and then being like, hey, I don't want this to be an Execute ripoff, we did get better at like finding more of the identity for our game later on. We're like, let's not worry about the actual full identity now. Let's start working on the game design and then update like how our UI works. Like at first, like the way buttons looked were 100% copy pasted from Execute. Now we've kind of made like our own different style of Windows 98 buttons and things like that.
Yeah, one thing that's come up, I've been talking about this game I've been kind of daydreaming about. It's taken me down a rabbit hole of Melvor Idol, but then also RuneScape and just why it's
And
like
no,
still a popular game today. How are you actually implementing MMO into the clicker game? Like what are you doing to make it an MMO?
So this is a piece of feedback that we get. We don't. It's purely from the backend engineer perspective of like the fantasy of MO98 is you've been hired at Blizzard as like the guy with the ponytail and the gray hair to make sure you do not actually care about the game. Almost like it's almost like a parody on Blizzard of like the moment your game doesn't perform well enough anymore, okay, boom, it's time to prestige. We make the new MMO and we ship that and we're gonna get more players. That's more of the idea of there's nothing in terms of like quest design, all of those things basically doesn't matter at all. You just have to make sure that your servers can handle the ever-growing load and that you earn more money for your studio, basically. It's kind of a different, like I try to make it clear. It's some feedback we get of like people thought a little bit more of like quest management or all of
Yeah.
that was going to be in the game. It's not. It's
Okay.
purely focused on I run the data center, I run the operations of the MMO studio.
Yeah, that's a really unique take. That's a lot of fun. I'll wrap it up with just a couple questions so that I don't take too much of your time.
Oh, we can go for like as long as you want. I have like
Okay.
2-3 hours left still if
Okay.
you want. So
Beautiful. Then
I,
I
I
will ask
like
all the
long content.
questions.
Our
Great.
audience likes long content as well, so you can go as long
Okay.
as you want to.
Amazing. Love to hear that. Do you mention that you've been doing really well in Next Fest with Wishlist and stuff? Are you expecting
Yeah.
this to be your biggest game, or do you think it'll hit that after looking at those metrics?
Now, yes. When we started Next Fest, not at all. So MO98, like I said, we started that 7 weeks before the Next Fest was when development started, which is a crazy timeline. I think it's also something that is only possible if you've made a bunch of games before, you're doing this full time, you are working with more than one person on the team, and you're good sync. Like I think that is part of the requirements of like you need to have done this for a bunch of time. Like you could give the exact same idea of MO98 to a random viewer and probably it would be harder for them to replicate the exact same result. This is not me touting my own horn. It's just being like, it takes time to get better. I think that's also the good thing about our YouTube channel. You can, in real time, if you just scroll through all of our videos, see us get better. So we started development 7 weeks ago. We were both deadly sick for like a week with the flu. So 6 weeks of development time is how I count it. Steam page only went live 4 days before the Steam Next Fest. So that's like red flag number one. Krzyzewski is always like, don't do this. This is stupid. I'm even like, don't do this. This is stupid. But it was kind of like, it was a use it or lose it situation for our studio because we kind of, once again, we couldn't wait until after the June Next Fest because then if we released after it, there just wouldn't be enough time or like enough runway for our studio. So okay, we either we join this Next Fest or we don't, but then we wouldn't join the June one. So we're like, okay, fuck it, we do it. The game launched, or like a Steam page launched, and out of nowhere, I was like, I'm not even gonna bother with press, I think, because I'm like, I wasn't very confident in the game because I felt like, this was super last minute. We hadn't done a lot of validation. I think I did one playtest with our audience, and that's it. And I'm okay, I put this live, and then a day later, 4Gamer, a Japanese media outlet, already covered it themselves because I woke up and we had like 250 bonus wishes. And I'm like, what am I looking at? And I saw they were all from Japan, so I just like looked up MO98 in Google and I found the article. It then still like grew a little bit residually. Demo went live 1.5 days before the Next Fest started. No. Yeah, I think 1.5 days before Next Fest started. But then we still pushed like 4 updates a day because there were still a bunch of things wrong with it. And then the Next Fest started and we got like 1,000 wish lists, day one. Day 2, 1,000 as well. Day 3, 1,500. There is still no content creator coverage about our game. We're now recording.
Wow.
I'm going to date the episode. It's like 5 days into Next Fest, I think that we're right now. I sent one more email to like, I have a press guy here in Japan that I once did a video with. And I'm like, hey, we just announced our game. It's performing really well. Maybe you want to write an article about it. A day later, they did write an article about it, which gave us some wish lists. Then, like I said, someone told me, hey, this game is actually pretty dope. You should make a post on the Incremental game subreddit about it. I did that. Also gave us a bunch of wish lists. I used the UTM link. The post, like direct clicks, was I think 240 wish lists that we got from it. I don't know how much more it is from like people who like looked up the game on Steam themselves. I can't track that, but still some good impact there. 0 content creator coverage right now, and we're sitting at 5,700 wish lists now in basically 9 days since launching our Steam page. Probably by the end of next fest at this point, we're going to look at 7,000, I would hope, which basically guarantees popular upcoming for us already. Which is insane because, for context, the second highest game, or like the second highest list list we ever launched a game, it was 2,000. Unicycle Pizza Time was 500 wish lists that we launched that game. At Kyoto Anomaly, 800. I think Forge Industry was 2,000. So this is very unique for me. This is the first time we're finally going to show up in popular upcoming after all of these years, basically. But I did not expect this. I think when we went into the next fest, I was like, okay, my minimum bar to clear, if I didn't want to count this next fest as a failure, was 1,000 wish lists, because that's how much we got when I made last year. I made like a little side project just for myself because I wanted to learn Unity more. That was a desktop pet anime girl. It was a super simple thing. I just wanted to learn like the basics of Unity because I never programmed much because I had 3 programmers. I'm like, I want to learn this myself now. I made that. I put it on Next Fest, and that got 1,000 wish lists. And it was just an anime girl, basically, in like a window. It was a little bit more than that, but that was my minimum. I wanted to beat the anime girl.
Yeah.
And my like, in my hearts of hearts, I was hoping for 2,000 wish lists, but I was also like, Marnix, I think you're delusional. Like I couldn't fully believe in, oh, I'm going to get 2,000 wish lists this next year. I'm like, I don't think it's that good of a game. I still am surprised now that people enjoy the game this much, where we're looking at an average playtime of 50 minutes, I think, medium playtime of 29. I'm still surprised by that. As in, like, I don't think the game is bad. I also just didn't expect the game to be this good. And yeah, now we're at 5,000. I would have never guessed it, where I've now gotten the kind of, how do you say it, paralyzing habit of permanently checking like Steam stats. Like on SteamDB, you can see like live players. Okay, so right now we're at 80, which is our new peak, basically. We just reached a new peak while we're recording this.
Wow.
Of 80 concurrent players. Yeah, our graph keeps going up the longer the next fest goes, which is also not standard, I would say, because day one we had 52 concurrent players. It's like our first day max. So now I'm just permanently refreshing that, and I'm permanently yelling at the Steam dashboard to update the wish lists faster. But me and then William also, we're like, but when is the other shoe gonna drop? When are we going to get the giant like Steam discussion post of like, here is everything wrong with your game. You guys should just pack things up and make a new game because this is not gonna work. And sure, we get some feedback posts, but the feedback posts like, oh, you're lacking automation. And we're like, hey, yeah, we left this out on purpose for the demo, but the full game will have like more automation parts. And then like other small stuff, they were like, oh, these are easy fixes. And I feel like I'm missing something. I still don't believe that the game is as good as people. Like, even though Steam is pushing it, I'm still like, am I calling these people into liking my game? Because maybe it's also the whiplash from like our previous games that we've made, that our audience is always like, why are you making Anomaly slop? Why are you making Streamer slop? Just make a good game for once. And now it's like people are enjoying my game. It's just such a foreign feeling for me almost. Like, I know people enjoy like Unicycle Pizza Time and our other games, but there was just nothing bad about this game. Or like, we get some feedback, but just not what I expected, basically. Especially not for the amount of players we have, for all of those things, basically.
Yeah, well, I hope you can live into that excitement. That kind of natural momentum is really huge. Something I've been asking some of these incremental devs is just what they've been doing for the demo. You know, a game about feeding a black hole, for example. The demo was sort of a squished game. So it was like you ramp up in 30 minutes to the end game. Like, it wasn't like you play 30 minutes and then cut off. They actually ramped it up faster. How did you guys tackle that with this game?
I was doing daily live streams every day before the next fest of like, it's crunch time to work on, like, guys, I still don't have a good cutoff for this demo. What should I do? And someone in chat was just like, after a certain amount of prestige, just give a blue screen of that, like fake blue screen of that, and be like, you've reached the end of the demo. You can only do 5 prestige. And I'm like, good enough.
That's actually pretty clever, though.
And that's it. We also on purpose, like, we designed the skill tree for the demo is different than the full game skill tree. Like, the full game skill tree is going to be way bigger, way deeper. This one is just smaller and more condensed. And that's it, basically, because the demo that we have now is just the game that we have. As in, like, there is no more game. There's not that I can see like, hey, if you're a content creator, I can give you a bigger version of the game. The only thing I can do is disable the blue screen of that limit at 5 games. And I mean, you can keep replaying after that, we have to make the rest of the game still. And part of me was also like, how do we make more of this game? But then you read like feedback of like, oh yeah, if you could have released this game right now as like a full game, I still probably would be happy with it already. Which is also once again of like, this feels too little.
That's crazy.
Too little of a game and all of those things. Yeah, but then whenever someone makes like a Steam discussion, I can like look at their profile of like how much time did they spend? And then one guy had 16 hours in the game, and I'm like, what? That's probably I assume he just went to sleep with the game on or something. But like other people are 3 hours, 2.5 hours. Like I did not expect the game to actually be able to last that long either. I'm gonna
How
be
long
honest
does
with
it
it. I
take
would
to beat
love
the
to be
demo?
like, I think it's skewed because of course I can beat it pretty fast. I think like 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It depends. It depends. There's multiple ways. You can either just speed run the amount of sequels that you make, or you can take your time and like really grow out every sequel before you go in prestige. I think that's kind of the idea of like, if you speed run the sequels, you're gonna get that blue screen of that earlier, but then you'll know of like, oh, maybe I should spend a little bit more time so I can have better stacking results. But I'd like to sit there and be like, oh, I'm a game design genius and I planned this out all. It's like, no, I'm just coding or like game designing at the seat of my pants or whatever the expression is. Like, I'm just making the game and I'm just playing it every day. I think that's one good thing that we did, me and the other developer, where every day I would just pull up the game in the morning, first thing, after like he pushed his last changes, and I just play it for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then I have this list of like odds and ends is what I call them, of like all small things of like, there's a little bit of like, there's no sound effect here, or there's a little change here. I don't like how this is implemented. All stuff that he can often clear like per individual item, like 1 to 5 minutes of like, what if we add a setting for this? What if we do this? And we did that for 2 weeks on end, where every week it was 10 to 15 points. And I think that also just stacked up in giving a very solid experience. I think that's maybe, I'm not 100% certain on like the quality of like the game design, but I am very confident. We knew this going into the Nexus already, of the game is not going to hard crash on you. The game is not going to have a crazy amount of bugs. It's not going to be unplayable. Everything that there is somewhat polished. Can we polish it more? Always. But it is that 80-20 rule of all of the things are like 80% polished enough
Yeah.
already. I think that is something that we're getting like better at as well. And it's also one of the things like, whenever I see my audience games, I'm like, guys, this should not be on Steam right now. Yeah. Then I'm like, if I'm the person who says other people like, hey, I would have waited with putting this on Steam, it's just not good enough, I should hold myself to that higher standard as well. And I think that did work. Game design wise, I have no formal education. This is just having made 5 games.
Right.
That's doing most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, how are you handling the balance of how long things take? We've referenced these 2 other incremental games. There's kind of two modes of thought that I've run into in that. A game about feeding a black hole, they were very scientific. Like every
Yeah.
6 seconds, this needs to happen. Every 65 seconds, this needs to happen. And so it was very data driven. But you mentioned Payne Robinson with Execute, which also was pretty successful. He just vibe checked it. He just played the game and it was like, that kind of felt like it took a little too long. I'm gonna make it a little longer. That was a little too fast. How are you doing that decision?
I think the dopamine maxing strategy works if you're making the notebuster likes of like every 6 seconds something needs to happen. I think if you're making a more like UI heavy game, like sometimes the pacing, I'm still like, hey, this feels a little bit too long. I do the vibe based approach more. And then also our programmer, he made like this super in-depth thing of we can like simulate different ways of playing the game. As in like you can in 2 seconds or something simulate playing the game for an hour. And then seeing like, okay, if my strategy is instant buy every upgrade, what is the end result of playing an hour? If my strategy is just speed running to get the sequel every time, what is the end result of that if I play for an hour? To kind of see, are there like any broken strats? How do we balance it there? But otherwise, it's just feedback and listening to player feedback. I think what I've been doing the most this week now is also like every time someone leaves a comment on Reddit or leaves a comment on our Steam discussion, just read all of it and write a response to it. And it's like, it can be overwhelming because I think I've written like 50 responses or something at this point. And it's always like, it's always the same thing. But it's like still reading it gives you an idea as well, like this is what people actually think. not just looking at it of that pure scientific of like every 6 seconds, but like, okay, these people seem to like the game. What do they say? And also, what do they not complain about? What do they seemingly all leave out in their reviews? That's probably something that we shouldn't touch too much anymore because they seem to be pretty happy with it. Like the current trend is just everybody hates our gnome. We have like a Clippy replacement that is like one of those like dumb things that we added on the live stream. Was like, guys, we need the Clippy replacement. What should we do? And then we came up on the gnome, and suddenly the game is 10 times better. Suddenly the game has personality. It has all of those things where everyone's like, I love the gnome, but please make me like strangle him with my hands because I am so sick of him coming with like random fun facts. Like he's very Clippy like in terms of like every
That's
randomly between 30 and 120 seconds, he will give you a fun fact of like, it's like, did you miss your deadline? Just change your calendar or something stupid like that, which adds a lot of charm, but
right.
that's like the points of contention. That's like the feedback we get is like, I just want the gnome to shut up. And it's like, okay, that's an easy fix.
Yeah.
There's not as much of like, okay, there's stuff like the balance is off, but I know that the balance is off. I kind of just was like, yeah, $220,000 sounds fine for this upgrade, and didn't validate it any further than that. That's also because of that rushed nature of not having done playtests as much, not having done any of those things. That it's kind of like you just pull a number out of your ass, for lack of a nicer way to say it, and this is what it is now. And if it doesn't completely break the game, all right, let's just keep going with it. It's also like I don't even know to what degree balance matters because right now, if you go to the Steam Next Fest charts, there is a game that's I think in the top 3 of the idler category called the Loopler. It's made by a BiteMe viewer as well. We played the game on stream. He was in chat as well. The balance is completely borked. You like things cost like 5 to 10 gold coins for an upgrade, and after playing the game for 5 minutes, you have like 1,500 coins already. Where it doesn't matter. You have basically free money infinitely, but that game still has like 200 concurrent players. It
Wow.
doesn't matter because the balance matters less than what is that core loop here of the dopamine of seeing a car drive around on the tracks, basically.
Yeah.
For the full game, when you care more, I think, yeah, balance matters a lot more. But I think especially for this demo now, if it was going to be better balanced, would that be better? Absolutely. If you don't have 2 weeks of time to balance your game, should you still release your demo? I think you also still can.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, with MMO 98 having so much natural success, how are you thinking about the deadline for releasing? Are you considering pushing it back and trying to do a big marketing push to developers? Or you just like throw it out there, let's start making some money?
It's not like throw it out there, but we're not changing. So it's not like public on the Steam page. The Steam page just says April 2026. The internal date that I have and that like is configured in Steamworks is April 20th. I still think that would be kind of what I want to go for. If it's going to be April 25th or something, fine as well. But ideally, still April. I don't think we're going to change much because that's the thing that I talked about with our developers. Of like, we are in the middle of development now. We started 6 weeks ago, and we have another 6 weeks now until release. A little bit like something like that, basically. We both feel, especially with how people are now responding to the game, and be like, "Hey, this is actually pretty good. I really enjoy this." We're pretty confident that in another 4 to 5 weeks, we can have a game that is especially content creator ready already. There is enough content that we can send this to like early access builds for like the full game to content creators and be like, hey, this is our big marketing push to drive more wish lists, basically. Other than that, I don't think we're planning a lot of stuff. We're joining one festival, which is at the end of April as well, which is like a fake OS festival. I don't know if it's going to have much of an impact. Steam festivals are very hit or miss, is what I've learned as well. But otherwise, we're not changing much because the financial reality of our studio hasn't changed. That's like a topic of like one day I want to make a video about it, I guess. It's like wish lists are cool, but wish lists do not pay rent. You can have as many wish lists as you want, or it's like, I can give you a $1 million Starbucks gift card. But if you live in a country where there is no Starbucks,
Yeah.
what does that mean? What is the value of that card? It's nothing because you can't do anything with that. And it's like, okay, we have all of these wish lists now, but we still need to worry about how we're going to survive next month. Like we can survive next month, but like figuratively, you see this more with like some games in our audience. Some games from our audience. they are like at over 100,000 wish lists, which is like, oh, fuck yeah, this is awesome. But these are large scope games.
Yeah.
They're still looking at a year of development.
Mhm.
If you have 100,000 wish lists and no publisher funding or no investor funding, you're still going to be stuck in your day job. Because yeah, sure, it sounds cool to be like, I'm going to work on this full time, but you're not earning money. You have to find something like a Kickstarter. You have to find something to make it work. Just having wish lists on its own, yeah, it's cool and it's a good signal, but it doesn't change the day-to-day operation of you running your studio right now.
Yeah, I think the only counter argument that someone could have is that your game might be good enough to push to like 30,000 wish list, which I think
Yeah.
gets you new things. But you obviously, you're thinking about that and you have to weigh that with the cost of taking more time and all of those things.
Yeah.
So I was just curious, yeah, how you were thinking about it. Um, Yeah, I'm really excited to see what MMO 98 does. I hope it's your biggest release. I've got just kind of a random smattering of other questions, and one
Yeah.
kind of ties into your success. But as I was kind of going through your channel, I started to see on some of your more recent videos, not a lot, but more than one, videos or comments that had a bunch of likes that were kind of saying something like, I used to really like following these guys, but they haven't been successful enough for me to keep listening to them. Um, I think people have this sort of grand vision that someone that's made games for 3 years should have made a Balatro, or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so do you feel like MMO 98 will prove them wrong, or does that bother you at all that people have that kind of feeling about your channel?
I I actually knew this question was coming. This was the only question I kind of prepared for. Like, I have an answer for this because I get it often. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the Earth is flat, or do you think that the Earth is round?
Round.
Okay, so if now tomorrow you go out and you talk to someone and they are adamant in that the Earth is flat,
Mhm.
you're maybe gonna try to convince them,
Yeah.
but you also kind of know you can't convince a flat earther.
Yeah.
They are so stuck in it. Now imagine you go out and you see 500 flat earthers. At what
Mm,
point you kind of just stop caring? And I
mm,
think that's kind of the point that I'm at of like they are in this fantasy of the earth is flat and every game developer who makes games for 3 years should have made $1 million by now. That no matter what I say to them, no matter what arguments I give to them, how much screenshots I show them of like, hey, I still made $50,000. Is that doesn't not count for something?
yeah.
They are stuck in that mindset of this guy is just fake and is just a grifter and he's just gonna sell a course one day. And at first I was like, yeah, this sucks. But now I'm like, dude, you haven't even released the game yet.
Yep.
What are you talking about?
Mhm.
I'm still ahead of you. There's still a very strong, loyal core of true biters. That's how I call my fan base.
Great names.
Who do like what we do, who do get a lot of value from it. I know a lot of developers. You don't see them in the comments, but if I go to like the Bit Summit last year, Bit Summit is an event here in Japan that's kind of funny. I learned it's kind of the tax write-off vacation for successful game developers.
That's
As
incredible.
in, I've made a game, I've made $100,000 or whatever. Oh shit, I need to make expenses or I have to pay more
Great.
taxes. Let's go to Bit Summit as a business expense and then stay like another 2 or 3 weeks in Japan
That's awesome.
because who doesn't want to be here? And then there's like developers who I won't name because maybe they want to be like faceless YouTube. Some of them are faceless YouTubers as well that maybe you know, who come up to me is like, "Hey, are you Marnix from BiteMe?" Or I had like the CEO of Toge Productions run
Oh,
up to me. I didn't know who he
that's
was.
very
He
cool.
ran up to me. He's like, "Hey, are you Marnix? I want to take a picture with you. Come with me to my
No
booth." I
way.
didn't know who I
Yeah.
still didn't know who he was. And then I take this picture with this guy in front of Toge Productions. I'm like, "Oh, he's maybe a developer." And I was like, "Oh, here's my card." And he's like, "CEO." And I'm like, "Okay." It's like,
Amazing.
I really enjoy the content you're making. I think it's a lot of value. Also, when I go to Gamescom, there's like people who work at like larger studios and they're like, hey, I run the marketing department of this AAA company. Keep doing the stuff. It's great stuff. And I think that kind of in-person feedback, those are the people who will not leave comments most of the time
Yeah.
because they have better things to do
Yeah.
than writing comments. But they so massively outweigh the like standard comment we get every time of like, oh, where is your successful game? You keep talking about making good games.
Yeah.
With MMO 98, I can be like, oh, but I have come into popular coming. I have gotten a lot of wishlist, but I already know that people will also just be like, yeah, but you just got lucky. To a certain degree, they're not even wrong. we just got lucky also with like content creator coverage for Unicycle Pizza Time. That's part of game dev. I think I don't like the analogy that the developers of Click and Conquer used of like, oh, game dev is just like a slot machine. Every game you release, you just rank the hand. I think there's more to it. But I think you can make yourself more lucky by doing certain decisions in game development. And I think we're just getting better at making those decisions of how can we get lucky without like being like, oh, we're just gonna go in and the plan is to get lucky. It's just let's do the small things like choosing the right genre, like choosing certain art styles to make it easier to get lucky. That I think we try to go for. Um, so yeah, honestly, my main thing now is I just shadow ban them from YouTube
Mm.
comments. That's
Yeah.
I used to care more about it, and now I'm like, look, if you don't like this content, why are you watching? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I actually really like the way you described that, and I'm actually gonna take that advice into account because the internet is a weirdly negative place. Like, I am
Yeah,
an extremely small YouTuber. Like, I just hit 1,000 subs, and I've received like a dozen negative comments of people being like, "I don't want this business bro slop," or whatever they're mad about. And
yeah,
so it's like you're watching this for free. I'm not making any money about it, and so it's like you just have to remember that the internet is not a real place, and seeing those people in person is awesome. Yeah, your comment about the slot machine, I find interesting. The way that I'm thinking about game development, I wonder if you resonate with this, is like not a slot machine, but it is like rolling a bunch of dice. And so, like, whenever you get better at developing, you get to add a couple dice. And maybe if you reach out to 100 content creators, you get to add a couple dice because maybe one of them will cover it. And so it's like
yeah,
you still have to roll the dice and get lucky. Like maybe they're like D100s or something, and it's not likely
yeah.
you hit a 100, but there are some things you can do. And if you're more skilled, you get more dice. And so it's
Mhm.
not exactly just like pure luck, but it's not exactly just pure skill.
Your
That's how
your
I've been thinking
base
about it.
your base stat increases based like in D&D, you have like the modifiers. The
Mhm.
higher your level, you can have like a +12 on charisma or
Yes.
whatever.
Mhm.
You can still roll a natural one.
Yeah.
But if your like minimum check to pause is like a 12 or a 16, if you already have the +12 in terms of like game design, it's going to be easier to clear that check basically.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Where it is just getting better at doing all the stuff like you said, like sending more content creator emails. For our first games, we sent like 20, 30 emails. Second game, 120. Third game, I think I sent out 380 emails. And it's like, I think the content creator emails is such a fun thing to do, as in like, yes, it's boring because I'm just doing this for like 4 hours on end. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, every email I send, I'm like doing the math in my head of like, okay, let's say that like 2% of these cover our game, it's gonna convert to so much. It's like if I think about it that way, every email I send is gonna be like $5 that I earn.
That's cool.
Maybe not like directly, but in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things, like the more emails I send, basically the more money I get
That's genius.
in an abstracted sense. And sending emails, would you want to send emails for $5 an email?
I
Probably.
would make
That's what it
to do
comes
that.
down
Yeah.
to.
If I could literally get paid $5, I would do that for a job, and I'd do it the hour day for the rest of my life. Well, obviously, it's boring, but that's such an insane requirement.
Yeah, and
That's
of course there is a cap in like how many
yeah,
content creators there are, but at least like
right.
stuff like that, you can just send so much, and the especially content creator marketing, the amount of work versus the potential impact is just so high. And that's kind of one thing also going back to M198 that I'm like also now, okay, we're at 5,000, 6,000 wishlists now without content creator coverage. What is gonna happen if I send another 150 emails? I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
I have some theories also, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what MMO98 does. I didn't realize it was so successful on Wishlist. I knew it looked very cool and in the vein of Incremental, but okay, yeah, just like I said, a couple other random kind of questions I
Yeah.
had come up with, unrelated necessarily to the prior conversation, but um, do you have any game dev advice that's generally accepted that you disagree with?
Ooh. Oh, we did a video on game dev hot takes. Okay, what is my game dev hot take? I'm gonna give you that one. I think a lot of developers just do not put in enough effort for like they they expect full-time game dev results, or like full-time 5 years game dev results from the first game that they work on 2 hours in the evening. And
Right.
I think that's kind of that imbalance also of seeing YouTube and seeing all of those people be like, I made a game and it made half, for a lot of people, that was the first Aramis video they watched of like, I've made $500,000. They didn't see the 2 or 3 years before that of struggling around that. Because sure, some people will go and look like, hey, what's the previous stuff you uploaded? A lot of people don't. I think that's my first thing of like, you need to want to work on games, as in like you really want to do it. I have a bunch of other hot takes. I think another one, I don't know what. I think there was this mini expose, or someone made some guy who didn't make games before made a video about why you shouldn't listen to game dev YouTubers. Happens every so often. And I think the video boiled down to, oh, you should make the games that you're passionate about. And it's like, okay, yeah, on one hand, that's right. On the other hand, there's this really impactful video, or that changed like my mindset a lot, from Sakurai. I don't know if you know Masahiro Sakurai, the developer, or like the guy who made Kirby. He's a very big YouTube channel. My favorite video of him is just like, you should treat yourself like a pro. Like, sure, passion is nice, but if you look at like game dev in general, the 3D artist who loves really cute stuff still can like flip the switch and work on like zombie models or whatever, if that's what's required of
Right.
them. And I think having that mindset of, okay, sure, passion matters a lot to get started, but you also just need to treat yourself like enough as a pro and ask yourself, am I raising the bar for myself high enough? Where you see those games on Steam, I see so many viewer submitted games. It's just like, apologies, but it's just Unreal slop, where
Right.
it's still got the motion blur on, there's no lighting, no good shadows, it's just like bloom everywhere. And it's like, you're just not seeing yourself as a pro enough, of like, you're trying to skip steps that shouldn't be skipped here. You should have gone to itch.io first. You shouldn't have put this on Steam yet, because sure, you've just spent $100 on the Steam credit and you can say, oh, I'm a published developer now. It doesn't matter. It gives zero benefits compared to just accepting that, hey, it's gonna take some time. I know that it's gonna take some time. If I don't want to put in the time required for this, if I am looking to just make games quickly and then quit my job soon after, it's not gonna work out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is a really interesting time for this specific topic. I'm working on a video that I'm gonna call something like biz dev versus artist, and it's kind of the same concept of like, do you need passion? And I actually sent out a poll to the Discord of the developers that I've interviewed, and not all of the stayed, so it's not all of them that I've ever interviewed, but even in just a couple minutes, they were like, I asked a question that was something along the lines of, it was like a quote I had just heard in a video, and it was basically saying like, passion is essential for a game dev, and if you don't have passion, it will die out. And like I think to start, like 3 people agreed and 1 person disagreed. And it kind of is, there is this culture, at least in game dev YouTube, which I'm kind of in, which I'm sure you kind of are familiar with, where it's a lot of people that probably haven't even made a game, but there's some kind of mindset that the art is more important than business, that if you try in any way to make money or maximize for money, then your art is like a failure and it doesn't count and you should stop. Have you
Yeah,
noticed that kind of mindset?
of course. I think it only exists on Game Dev YouTube. Once again, the moment you go to some like a Bit Summit or a Gamescom or whatever, it's biz dev. It's like,
Mm.
and even the artists know how business works there.
Yeah.
I think it's only this section of almost like game dev larpers who are like, my game failed,
Yeah.
but it's still a success because I put passion into it. And it's like, yeah, cool. I think the game still failed. How you see it is fine.
Right.
But if you look at it as in a part of the game dev ecosystem, you need both. You cannot be a like the starving artist is just like, you don't have to be a starving artist.
Mm.
You can also be a successful artist. I know some people in our audience who are making extremely like artistic games, is the best way I can describe them, and still pull in livable wages from those games, because they still think about, how am I going to price this game? How am I going to market this game? maybe it's not like the only thing they think about of like money, money, money. I need to make more money, but they still have a basic sense of how do I make money from my game. I think also if you're multiple people, it kind of shifts a bit because then you can kind of have a dedicated biz dev guy. You see this especially in like bigger indie studios, they always have a business developer. I think we have it to a smaller degree where the balance in our studio is we have the two other programs. I'm just like, guys, there's only one thing I demand of you guys, and it's just to make as good of a game or as good of code as you can. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about anything else. I will deal with that. I want to unburden you, but it is something that we still need to think about. So if there is something like maybe we disagree on like how we monetize or something, I'm still like, yeah, that's cool. We still need to make money, so we're not going to change this. We still need to have the Patreon. We still need to do something like that. We need something because we still need to earn money. Right now, we're not earning enough money. You should just focus on making the best game possible. I'll take care of the rest. And I think that is something that if you're a solo dev, then you have the two wolves inside of you. You have the artist wolf who is passionate, and you have the business dev wolf who wants to eat. And they kind of clash if it's the same person. I think as well, where there it feels a lot more of one is like, what am I? Am I gonna be more passionate? Am I gonna be more business development? Am I gonna be more business development about it? It's kind of awkward. I think you see this a little bit with a game about feeding a black hole, where Corey, I think that's his name, Tornity, he comes in with 100% I am the biz dev wolf. That's the biz dev wolf inside of me, and there is no artist in there. But he knows how to form a pack with someone who maybe has the passion wolf a bit more. And that's, I think, the best result. The artist can focus on making the good art. And sure, there's going to be some concessions of like, okay, maybe we need to focus a little bit on trying to make money from this game, so certain game design decisions shouldn't be made. Like, for example, maybe we should dopamine max a little bit. But on the other hand, like also probably Corey has to make some decisions of like, hey, yeah, maybe this is not 100% the best for like retention or revenue or whatever, but it's still a game. It's still an interactive medium that should be fun. We cannot ultra optimize the fun as well. Like there needs to be that balance. And I think that's kind of the game dev YouTube is mainly just solo devs. There is a super strong bias towards solo devs. And if you're a solo dev, yeah, then you have those two wolves inside of you fighting, and one of them is going to win over the other one.
Yeah, and for the people that are doing it solo, I heard a good analogy or like good kind of mind picture for it, and it's like passion is like a raging fire, and that can that can give you a lot of heat and a lot of energy, but it will also burn up quickly and it can't be sustained. And so when you think about like building a game in the long term, there are moments of passion where you're excited and you can ride those waves, but you also have to have something underneath, some sort of either determination or some other guiding light or something else burning that's not just passion, because you can't sustain passion forever. It won't get you through. So anyway, yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah. I think also like, I think it just comes down to like, you need passion, you also need money. And that's, I think, why you
Yeah.
often see a lot of these like weird games that are like super artistic, but then maybe are also still successful coming from like Finland. I don't know if you've noticed, but like there is just so many like somewhat fucked up games like My Summer Car, Cruelty Squad, or whatever, and they all come from Finnish game developers. And I I spoke to like the head of the Finnish Game Association once, and I'm like, so what's the secret? The secret is just that they don't have to worry about money as much compared to someone living in the US.
Yeah.
They have like their basic needs will always be met, which leaves them more time to not have to worry about biz dev. They are actually able to focus 100% on the art. And that doesn't mean that every game made in Finland is an absolute banger. There's a lot of slop as well.
Yeah.
It's just that there can be more long-term, large-scope, absolute banger games developed in Finland compared to some other countries where they do not have to worry about monetization as much. I think Ireland is trying to do something similar now as like a universal basic income for artists. Maybe that's going to give more Irish, like
Yeah.
weird fucked up games that are going to be like cult classics. But that is also like the financial reality of game development is still a business at the end of the day. It's just not as hip as I made $500,000 from my AI SaaS company in 1 month or something, wrote to 1 million MRR. It's just not as popular. Like game development feels more like this art form still compared to like software development traditionally, but you also see the same problem in like writing or in music production. Like game development is not the only place where it's like the fighting between I want to make money versus I want to make like art. This is kind of my favorite thing. Like the YouTube I watch is like small business YouTube. I love watching like the business breakdowns of like pottery studios. It's something so fake, but it's also like a very artistic, handcrafted medium because every pot needs to be made by hand, but they also still need to be able to afford like running their studio and then their pottery studio in this case, not the game studio. And I think there is just so much relatability between like game dev and like music production or all of those things basically that I learn more from those than from trying to find game dev business YouTube, especially 4 years ago when we started. There were not that many radically transparent
Yeah.
game dev YouTubers who talked about money. I'm happy that this has changed a little bit in the last few years. I don't know if it's related to me. Probably not. I like to think so, however. But back then, especially, like if you want to get better at game dev business, I think you shouldn't look up like game dev business almost. You should look at other more established like niches on YouTube where talking about money doesn't get you shunned immediately. Like
Yeah.
photography is another big one of like running a photography business where you will always have those people who are like, you should just do photography for the art and the
Yeah.
beauty. And then there's other people who are like hyper real estate maxing or whatever, or like drone maxing
Mhm.
of like, how do I make as much money as possible from like my drone fleet of photography? And I think there's a lot of things you can learn there because those are just where it's more mature to talk about money compared to game dev.
Yeah, well, I think this is a good place to put an end cap on our conversation. I think that's a good place to leave it. But let me end you with one final question. I know you've watched a little bit of the backlog, but this is the Dev Dream podcast, and it was created to inspire mostly myself, but also others by hearing about the dreams and the things going on of other game developers. So, for you,
Mhm.
Marnix, what would you say is your game dev dream in this season of life?
Okay, so if you asked me the question 2 years ago, the answer would have been I want to build a game dev compound and live there with all of my friends, and that's it. I think the answer now is of course a little bit less cool, and it's just I want to make games with my friends and have like the flexible lifestyle that I have right now. I think I am living most of the dream already. I think like Mrs. says, I just want more money. Like at
Mhm.
some point, you want to buy a house. At some point, you want to think more about like how am I going to sustain having kids or whatever. I like where I'm at right now. I think just being able to have a little bit more freedom, I guess mainly financial freedom in that regard, then is what it would come down to. Of if I can just not like retire, but like get all of my friends to be full-time game development and we can just all make games together. I think that's my dev dream.
Yeah, well, Marnix, that's a great dream. I hope you're able to make it into a reality. Maybe MMO 98 will push you even a little bit closer to that goal. Thanks for chatting today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for watching this entire episode with Marnix. I hope you found it as insightful as I did. One last reminder, if you're still here and you want to help me make more of these videos, put in your input, get access to a members-only Discord with myself included in there so that we can chat, consider becoming a member, starting at as low as $5 a month. And then there's a bunch of tiers above that, but you don't get anything extra for giving more other than just if you want to really help support the channel. So for just $5 a month, you could join that. And thanks for considering. Also, if you're looking for another great interview, I think you will enjoy this one on the screen. Have a good day, my friend.